Can I just pull it out?
Am I in front of the right man? Well, good to see you. Good sign.
Good evening, everyone. If I could please have your attention. We're getting ready to start, so if we could please have a seat.
Yes, nice to meet you. Finally. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Stafford, and I am the president of the G.M.I.S Improvement Society. And I want to thank all of you very much for coming out tonight and joining us for this very important candidates forum. Before I go much further, I want to especially thank the G.M.I.S Improvement Society Candidates Forum Committee for all their hard work behind the scenes to make sure that tonight did become a reality. I also want to thank Mr. Mike Feig of the Community House and also of the Fire Department for setting up all our chairs and getting this all ready for us tonight. And I would be very remiss if I didn't include G.M.I.S, who is always very helpful and accommodating. So please thank them very much. Okay, now the main purpose of tonight's event is to offer a non-biased forum to allow candidates and voters to discuss questions and concerns regarding our village of Gates Mills. Hopefully, this will give everyone the confidence that they need in choosing the best candidate to represent them on Village Council. I also want to thank, I want to say that we are very fortunate to have Mr. Mike McIntyre, who is the executive editor of the Stream Public Radio, thank you, public media. And we're going to be having Mike join us pretty soon. But first, I would like to ask our Mayor, Steve Szymborski, to come up and tell us some very important things about our village that we do need to pay attention to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. This will take exactly 1 minute because this is the candidates' night, not the administration or the current council's night. On the ballot in November will be issue 10. Issue 10 is a renewal of a $3.5 million operating levy. It generates for the village approximately $700,000 of taxes a year. There is no tax increase that comes with the renewal. There is, this is the 6th renewal, I believe, of a levy that was initially passed in 1995. So whatever tax dollars were given to us in 1995, we continue to use those dollars with the renewal approval to operate the village. I don't know how many villages can say that they're operating under 6 renewals now. So we can't, as elected officials, ask you to vote for it or against it. We can just ask you to vote on that day. So I would ask you to just consider that when you issue 10 at the November elections. Jim? Jim?
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. And now if we could give Mr. Mike McIntyre a very warm Gates Mills greeting, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. How are you tonight? Good. I want this to be interactive, so it's not television, it's not radio. I can see you. So you're doing fine. Yes? Good. I appreciate all the great questions. I've been going over them already. This is one of the things I love about Gates Mills, and I come back every year for 2 reasons. One is that Bob Reitman asked me to, and he's an amazing human being. And secondly, because this really is, I think, the model of democracy. This is a place where you guys might not like what some people say and like what others people say, but what happens here is what I think is the model of civil and civic dialogue. And that's what we're going to have tonight. And I appreciate all of you being here and being a part of it. I think that's a real inspiration to us. I want to clear one thing up before I introduce Charles Spear, who's going to have a few minutes to speak. And that is, it came to my attention in the last week that at least 2 candidates this evening, and maybe more, were solicited via text by someone purporting to be me asking for a favor. And in one case, apparently, I asked the recipient to send me $800 so that I could buy gift cards for the candidates at tonight's forum. This is very, very specific phishing, and I can tell you it is a scam. I would never ask via text for $800 that I would then give to other people. What I will do tonight in person is ask each of the candidates, could you please give me $1,000? And I'll keep it myself. Is that, and Venmo is fine, cash, any of that? I don't have any takers, so unfortunately that's not going to work. I'm going to begin the evening. We're going to have this great conversation with your council candidates, but I want to start with someone who is unopposed for treasurer, and we're going to give him 3 minutes to sort of lay out what his plans are as he's clearly going to be elected to that position. Let's hear it for Charles M. Spear, candidate for treasurer.
Thank you very much. I'm Chuck Spear. I'm the one who hangs around the coffee shop from 6 till 8 every morning. You can read about me in the brochure. I'm running for treasurer. I'm running unopposed. I was asked to run by Steve Szymborski, our mayor, and I told him I'd do that with the approval of a majority of council and Dixon Morgan, our current treasurer, and Bob Reitman, our former treasurer. And more importantly, Janet Mull, who is our invaluable finance administrator. No treasurer could do this job without her. I asked the mayor to get those approvals, and he did. And now I'm asking for your approval. I have the credentials for the job and the skill and the energy. I've been actively engaged in the community. I've been in the audience at just about every council meeting for the past 4 years. I have a passion for this work and for Gates Mills. I know it's easy to skip a vote when a candidate is unopposed. Please don't do that. I'm hoping for a landslide. Thank you very much.
If you could be elected on brevity of speech, you already win. It is a landslide.
It's not something I'm known for.
I've just met you, and to me, you're known as a man who is brief. Guys, I've got a few questions. I know a little bit about Gates Mills, and I've tried to familiarize myself with some of the big issues here, but you guys know what's going on. So the way I'm going to handle this is all of these questions, and there you can still fill cards out, and I'm sure that folks will, and feel free to bring them up during the forum. It's okay to jump in the middle of that. I'll just take them and look at them, but I'll be asking your questions as well as some of the ones that I had for ourselves. We're going to start the forum tonight, though, by allowing each of the candidates to have 2 minutes to sort of lay out their case. At the end, and you maybe don't know this yet, but I just decided, so good luck. At the end tonight, I'm going to give you each a minute to sort of leave us with what you want the public to know about your candidacy, about what you might do. So you've got the 2 at the beginning, the 1 at the end, and then we put you through the meat grinder in the middle, okay? All good. So let's start one end to the other. We'll start at the far end with Mr. Atten.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm David Atten. I'm a member of the council, and I'm reaching the end of my first term. Over the past 4 years, I've learned a great deal and have much deeper appreciation of our village. I've come to know its history, the characteristics of its many different and distinct neighborhoods, its beautiful yet challenged natural environment, and the wide-ranging views of many of you. Most importantly, I've learned from our government how we work. I've learned the functioning of the government, how it makes decisions, and so on. It is very different from a business environment, which I was very used to, and more complicated than one might imagine. Nonetheless, during my term, council has taken some important decisions on your behalf. For example, we implemented the successful Mayfield Road safety program, and we've laid the groundwork for the new fiber optic broadband system to be commissioned next year, which everyone will have access to. Now, for a variety of reasons, the village's financial position is very strong, and you should bear that in mind as we proceed. Looking forward, I believe very firmly that council must devote substantially more attention and resources to developing an enduring environmental stewardship program for the entire village. Our trees and forests are deteriorating. Our ODNR representative, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, described Gates Mills forests as being, quote, in bad shape, unquote. Flooding and erosion have also increased dramatically, as many of you will know, throughout the village. The upside potential of getting this right is enormous for all of the community, both those today and those many more who will be here in the future. Beyond that, I've tried over the last 4 years to do two things that I thought were very important. To ensure that council decisions are based on rigorous, objective analysis, combined with vigorous, respectful discussion. And beyond that, the second point, to increase both council transparency and resident engagement in order to improve the quality of council decisions on your behalf. In my view, and those of others, the quality of discussion at council has improved significantly over the last couple of years. As always, there is still room for improvement. I encourage you to re-elect me so that I may continue to energetically pursue these objectives on your behalf. I thank you, our residents, for being here tonight, the Improvement Society for arranging this session, and of course, Mike McIntyre for making this event possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Grace Ann Bourne.
Hi, I have to take my glasses off so I can see. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to the organizers for planning and implementing this event. It's crucial that we meet each other in person and communicate as neighbors and in friendship as engaged citizens. My name is Grace Ann Bourne. I'm excited to run for Gates Mills Council. I feel very honored to sit at this table with these people. I've lived in the village with my husband, David, and our 3 teenagers for 3 years. I grew up in Michigan. We've lived in various places, and now we're rooted and invested here. I decided to run for council to further my commitment to this, our home. I care about people, I care about civic engagement, and I care about making sure residents are informed. We chose Gates Mills for all the familiar reasons that we all love it, and I want to help preserve it. I've studied the comprehensive plan. I've talked with residents, and people want improvement, but they don't want big changes. My priorities will reflect the values surmised in the plan and my own, that government is meant for providing safety and order and investing in and protecting shared resources in a fiscally responsible manner. I'd like to make sure we fund as needed our public services, the personnel departments, according to budget, maintaining roads, et cetera. Additionally, I would support efforts to slowing traffic speeds, adding noise cameras, any additional traffic cameras as is prudent for the budget. In addition, I'm interested in thinking creatively about how we engage residents toward preserving our tree canopy and the village's natural beauty. The invasives, as David mentioned, are a real threat. And it's not just what you see today, it's a real threat for the long term of the beauty of the village that we see every day. So I have lots of ideas. I get creative, especially when I'm in a group. One of them is how we advertise for social events at the intersections of Mayfield and Brigham and, Mayfield and River and Brigham and River. We advertise social events. We could do the same thing with other village initiatives to get people really aware of what's happening. I'd like to engage every homeowner on small steps for managing invasive plants. I think communication campaigns can go a long way towards civic engagement and accomplishing shared goals. Lastly, I'd like to ensure we provide for the most vulnerable in our community, again, as prudent for the budget. And to that end, I've been happy to serve on addressing, on the senior committee, addressing the needs of Gates Mills seniors. I'm anxious to see how that goes and keeps moving forward.
And that's about our time.
Oh, I'm good. Okay, then thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you. For our candidate. Karen Greco.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Karen Greco, and I am running for council, and I hope that you will vote for me, particularly after you hear what we all have to say today. People ask me as I'm out and about in the community, why did you decide to run? Well, I was asked to run by two very, very important individuals in the community. And so I said yes to them. I have an affinity for politics. I was a political science major in college. And so I feel that that interest will be good. I also am a practicing attorney, and I have been for 43 years. So as an attorney, there's certain things that you learn, and I can bring those interests with me as I serve on council. Number one is to listen. And I think that I am a good listener, and that will be important. The other is to understand large amounts of information, to be able to condense them and to be able to explain them to others. Lawyers also have to be collaborative. And if there's one thing I think that I will try to do is to collaborate with the other individuals on council. And responsiveness is also key. And if any of you have reached out to me in the last weeks as we've started our campaign, you know that I will get back to you right away. So my husband and I have been residents here for 21 years. We raised 3 children and sent them to Gilmore Academy. So we have deep roots in this community. As I've been talking to all of you and listening to all of you, there's themes that come up. And the top 3 for me that I have noticed is safety, particularly road safety. Also bringing young families into this community. That is key to me. We have to make Gates Mills the place on the east side of Cleveland for young families to come and to stay. And third, to make the downtown a bit more appealing. There's some things about it that are very nice. There's other things that are not. And I think that we need to address those and see if we can make changes to the downtown that we're in today.
Okay, we're coming
Thank
up
you.
on time. Okay, thank you. If it helps, if you kind of look toward me after a little bit, I'll kind of give you this. This is your air supply. And when it goes to that, you can't breathe anymore. So this will sort of let you know you have a few seconds left and we won't have any awkward endings. Megan Perez.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks everybody for being here tonight and the Improvement Society for hosting this. I was raised in Northeast Ohio. I graduated just down the street from Orange High School, and my parents still live in Pepper Pike. So Gates Mills has always been familiar to me. My husband Joe and I moved to Virginia when I went to the College of William and Mary for grad school. And we lived there until our son was born, at which point I knew we needed to come back home to Ohio. As we looked for a community to raise our family, Gates Mills rose to the top of our list for so many reasons. Our strong safety services, a commitment to our natural environment and access to green spaces in the Chagrin River, a strong, diverse school system. Those are just a few of the things that drew us here. Now, after almost 10 years of living here, I've grown to appreciate and understand even more about the characteristics that make this village such a unique place to live. I've actively contributed to supporting many of the traditions that are so near and dear to many of us. And I've had the opportunity to get to know and collaborate with many of the village leaders, staff, and community organizations who roll up their sleeves every day to make this place a great place to live and who really get things done around here. Maintaining what we have doesn't just happen, though. One of the things that's so unique about Gates Mills is the strong sense of volunteerism and community that makes this village run. And I strongly believe we need to have a pipeline of people who are committed residents, who care, who are informed, and who are willing to step up and give back. As part of that next generation of residents, I have learned so much over the past 10 years from those that have come before me, and I take that responsibility seriously, and that's why I'm running for council. With a background in public policy and having spent the past 16 years of my career at a federal agency dedicated to improving government operations, I feel uniquely positioned to be able to give back to our community with a positive, collaborative, and solutions-oriented leadership style. And I hope that by the end of tonight, I'll have earned your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Craig Steinbrink.
Good evening. I want to first thank the Gates Mills Improvement Society for hosting this event. I'm happy to see a good number of residents here tonight, and I'm also happy to see the fact that we've got a competitive race for council this year. My name is Craig Steinbrink, and my wife and I are 20-year residents of the village. If there's a better place to raise a family, I have yet to find it. For the past 4 years, I've worked alongside the mayor, other members of council, and village staff to manage village affairs in a prudent and proactive manner. I care deeply about this village, and that's why I'm here tonight. In addition to my 4 years on council, I've served on planning and zoning for nearly 10 years, serving as chair for the last 3. And I also serve on the safety and the real estate committees. During my first term, I brought a fresh perspective and collaborative mindset to addressing issues faced by residents in the village. I understand the importance of working together in a collegial environment, and I strongly believe collaboration and consensus should be the overriding philosophy of those on council. I'm proud of our accomplishments. Over the last 4 years, we've improved safety in the village with the installation of the speed cameras. Speed on Mayfield Road is down by 10%. It's allowed our officers to spend time in other parts of the village. We have added to the fire staffing on weekends to improve response times over the weekends. I'm proud of our efforts to improve the village center. We worked hard to bring Addie's Cup into the village, and they just re-signed a 5-year lease. And we worked with SARS Place to make improvements to Burton Court. The fact that nearly a third of village land is protected is a conservation victory for the entire village. The tireless efforts of the Gates Mills Land Conservancy and the volunteers serving on that organization for the last 30 years have forever protected important parts of our village. I would like to see more collaboration between the village and the Land Conservancy to improve the focus on stewardship of properties that are conserved in the village. The recently formed Tree Canopy Committee and the Invasives Removal Program are good starts on this important work. I'm eager to continue to represent the needs of all residents. I'm running for re-election for a few simple reasons. Continue the work to preserve the ambiance and rural nature of the village, continue to capitalize on opportunities for improvements and efficiencies, continue maintaining the village's focus on safety, community engagement, and maintaining our infrastructure, and ensuring our zoning codes are consistent with the heritage of the village, but remain flexible to allow homeowners to improve their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just say, as someone who drove into Gates Mills from Rocky River, it's been mentioned twice now. Now you tell me about traffic cameras? Thanks a lot. David Young, you're up next.
My name is David Young. I live with my wife Judy and daughter Emma at the bottom of Old Mill, just as you enter the village. I want to thank the Improvement Society and the mayor and Mike McIntyre for being here tonight, and all of you and our fellow candidates for coming out this evening. It's frankly a little humbling to be sitting at this table with so many qualified individuals who are willing to devote the time and commitment to serve on council. It's funny for me because tonight really isn't about us. I think it's about you, the villagers. I ran a company for 30 years by focusing on the customer, and I think the village council should be just the same. The council's a company, and we villagers are the customers. As I've been talking to everyone that'll stop and listen, I've heard 4 things, which I agree with. The first is that safety is paramount, and I'm pleased to hear that it seems everyone at the table here agrees with that. The second is Gates Mills should stay the same. When Judy and I moved here 4 years ago, I found that the village was essentially the same as it had been 60 years ago when I first used to come out and ride my bike to the old Livery Tavern and buy candy. And I think that's perfect. It should be that way, and it should be that way for at least another 60 years. I would be against any development unless otherwise instructed by the voters that would change the character or beauty of the village or alter our 5-acre single-family zoning laws. Third, I stand with the Gates Mills Land Conservancy. I think their efforts are a very big contributor to the beauty of the village and what we have today. And I think they are the most experienced and qualified to steward our land moving forward. And lastly, we have to improve our communications. We talk about this every election, and all the village council agendas and meeting minutes are posted on the website for anyone to see. I looked at the agenda for the last meeting. It's 64 pages long. It takes a real commitment for someone to read through that and try and to see if there are any issues that they think are worthy of comment. And we can do better than that. I think we ought to have a monthly email to anyone who's willing to subscribe with a quick summary of what's going on in council, and print the same information on a dedicated website page on our website, print it in the pink sheets, the Gates Mills Connect, and try and elevate the conversation between us customers and the folks that are acting on our behalf. I think that way is the only way council will really be able to serve the customer. And by involving all of us, I firmly believe we'll get a better, more thoughtful answer to our issues than if council were left to its own devices. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's so many topics to dig into, and I appreciate all of you helping me with this, with these great questions. You can still fill out the cards. They'll bring them up to me as we go along. I'm going to start with something that hasn't been addressed here, but I have 3 different question cards that address this issue. And it starts with a resident who moved here in 1998 when there was free rubbish collection. A few years later, due to financial constraints, the free service was canceled. At this time, it was implied that this would be a temporary measure. As a candidate for village council, what are your thoughts about having council take another look at the village's reinstating rubbish subsidization in some form? Another audience member says, now that the village is financially benefiting from the speed detection cameras, again, let me know ahead of time next time. Do you think that money could be used to resume paying for our garbage services, something the village used to offer its residents? And finally, another point about that, in the past, it used to do that. Now I'm saying that the service is not quite the same as it was before. So let's get into trash collection. By the way, when I ask these questions, not everybody has to answer, and we don't have a certain amount of time. So I'll usually direct it to one particular person. At this point, I don't have a particular person, so if you just want to be the first one to raise your hand. If you want to filter in with answers, feel free to do that. But again, not everybody has to address every single issue that we bring up. Maybe pick the ones that are the most near and dear to your heart. So Craig, let's start with you on rubbish collection.
Oh, it's a great question, something that has come up at a handful of council meetings. And if we go back to 2013, when the state of Ohio eliminated the what's effectively the inheritance tax, the village lost about $1 million a year in revenue. That's about what the 10-year average was in terms of what the estate tax in Ohio was collecting in the village. So when that went away, the village, and I give the prior administration and councils credit for finding ways to be lean and to run the village without $1 million of additional revenue coming in. So the general fund is as large as it's ever been. We've got $9 million in an investment account. General fund is a little over $11 million right now. We are effectively running a break-even budget. And it's something that we should certainly look at from a addition to service. But I would say there's a lot of infrastructure that's aging in the village. If we look at the town hall over here, if we look at the post office, some of these other buildings that are 60, 70, 80 years old, that we've got some deferred maintenance that we're working on, but it's something that we should definitely look at.
I would agree. I think that council should look at this issue. There are other communities that pay for garbage removal, and I think it would cost about $500,000 a year. At least that's what my research indicates. So that is a chunk of money, but I think that we can look at it and see if we can give that service back to the residents.
Anyone else want to jump in on that? Okay.
I'll jump in on that as well.
Okay. And you're next, David.
Yeah,
ahead, Mike.
I'm also supportive of considering, what we can give back to the residents. I've heard the same estimate that Karen just cited, that it is about $500,000 a year. So it's not an insignificant sum. As Craig noted, our general fund is in great shape. There have been some elements that are a little over budget this year as we've expanded tech services, cyber security and all of that. So I think given those, expenses, and then also just potential uncertainty from the State House, things that are outside of our control, that we need to be able to have that information about what those costs are, but also weigh them with things that are a little outside of our control. So I think it's something to look at, but something that in the long term.
Thank you. David?
think about.
A couple of extra points on the garbage collection. We have a very specific requirement when we go out for bids to get for garbage collection. And collecting garbage at our homes with our long and crooked driveways and so on is not easy. So for the last two cycles, we've had only one bid. And as you know, when you're buying something, getting one bid is not wise. So I really think that council's got to do two things. We've got to look at how we make the bidding more competitive. Maybe we even do it for ourselves. I don't know. We haven't even looked at that. And I think a good idea would be, for example, the beginning of this year, the cost went up by a third. So everybody's bill went up by a third, which was massive, largely because we didn't have any competition in the bidding. And I thought that perhaps one way of subsidizing would be to pay that third for people for the next 5 years. But of course, we need a long-range financial plan to do this, a long-range view of our finances. We don't have one. The longest horizon we have for a finance consideration is a year. And we've got to look beyond that when we're considering serving the villagers with a service that's going to cost forever. And we need to start looking more carefully at our long-term finances. Our short-term finance is very strong and very comfortable, but we'll have demands on that money down the road that we need to pay attention to. So I think bidding and long-term financial planning are crucial as we address issues like this. Now, we've talked about it at the council on a couple of occasions in passing. There's been no interest in looking at it more carefully, and I believe we should be looking at it extremely carefully because it's a large amount of money, and we'll be up for rebidding the business at the end of 27. So we've got some time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there is a point that a council member brings up that makes you want to respond, just let me know. Like, for example, there's no long-term planning and you think, yes, there is. Feel free to raise your hand and we can continue that part of a conversation, even though the question started with something else. Okay. Just want to let you know that that's available to you. But one of the things that Craig, you mentioned was that there are other expenses that the village is going to face infrastructure wise. You mentioned the village hall. It's not ADA compliant. There are issues there. You have the interurban bridge or the walking bridge over the Chagrin River, which is not in great shape. There's a plan to perhaps spend a certain amount of money to study what's wrong with it. And then there's going to be, how do we fix it? And then you just have in general, the downtown area. So let me start with you on that and then have others come in. How would you address the infrastructure issues that you face in Gates Mills? And do we need a blueprint for the future development of downtown Gates Mills? Craig?
Word development scares me. I think downtown is fine the way it is. I don't know that we need anything there that we don't already have. The first thing as far as the infrastructure is we got to come up with a plan. The town hall is almost 100 years old. The walking bridge is 125 or 130 years old. I think we have to take an inventory and look at all the things that are in the village and be able to have somewhat of a useful life expectancy in terms of when does flooring need to be replaced, when does a roof need to be replaced, when does brick and sidewalks need to be replaced and updated, and it's more of a proactive approach rather than constantly reacting to something that's happening. So one of the things I think would be a good idea would be to have a comprehensive asset management study done. The village owns quite a substantial amount of real estate, and I don't know that there's ever been a formal study of that to see when things are replaced, what their life expectancy is. And so the first thing I would say is from that standpoint, I'd also put a fire truck in there and a new salt bin that we're looking to put in that council has discussed. First thing we have to have from a real estate standpoint as a plan, but I wouldn't be in favor of any further development in the downtown area.
I think they have fire trucks at Costco, but they're huge.
Yeah.
Um, Karen?
The word development doesn't scare me. I'm not saying that we're a community that's going to develop a lot of things or change a lot of things, but sometimes you have to look at it. And I know that John, a council member now, has created a committee to look at the downtown and to determine whether any more development, any more things need to be done. Remember, there's people, some at this table, who did not think that Addie's Cup was a good addition to this village. And if you've been there, you know that Laura, who runs it, she could be the mayor. Sorry, Steve, but she is remarkable. And so it's a very nice atmosphere when you go in there, very warm, very welcoming. But there's people that thought that was too much progress. So if elected, I would like to be on that committee with John to try to determine if things need to be changed. For instance, we have a dump right on the edge of Chagrin River. I don't know who put it there. I don't know why it's there, but it's not nice to look at. And as an avid pickleball player, I go by those courts all the time, and we're there, and the trucks come up and down, and that's where they, put their, that's where they dump things. I think that's a poor use of land, a poor use of our property, and I'd like to see that changed into something that could give us some access to the river.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who else wants to talk about infrastructure or downtown planning?
I was just going to mention, I think it ties into some ideas of spending the money we have with regard to like the services for all residents versus the people who would like to see more things in the downtown. Some people don't access downtown, and it's not a what do you want versus what do you want, but how does the council balance those priorities with different villagers' priorities? So the long-term planning that goes into accounting for a cost of garbage and rubbish service, we don't want to just take that away. We can't offer it and then yank it again. If we then find ourselves down the road needing to implement infrastructure studies or make changes to different, or improvements to the bridges and whatnot. So I think there has to be a lot of deliberation and to David's point, a lot of long-term planning.
Okay. Who else?
Yeah, the issue of downtown development is one that has been brought up more recently at council, thanks to John. And this is something that I think that is worthy of a look, especially in terms of improving or upgrading some of our village buildings that are in the village center for the staff and making sure they're safe for them and also for the tenants that use those buildings. At the same time, many of those buildings are also historic structures. So I think it's really important that we're careful about the scope and clear with the residents about what we're doing, because the village center and the way that it is very appealing to many, myself included. And so we want to make sure that we're maintaining some of the historic structure and kind of the rural character of the village center when we do that.
Okay. And if I move on a topic and you're like, dang, I wanted to get in on that, you can jump back in later. You already had your chance, sir. No, oh, wait, sorry. I wanted to tell you that, but I guess you didn't. But this man is first, David, and then.
Fine, whatever.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm glad you agree with me. David Young.
I'm going to give the boring answer. When you run a budget to break even every year, and then you have some surprise, like you need a new roof on the fire station, or you need to fix a road, you're always in crisis mode. And you need to, I think having a plan of all the assets and their expected life is a terrific idea. It's a lot of work. You can get started by simply accruing a certain amount of money each year for unexpected maintenance issues that will come up, so that when they do happen, you don't have a crisis and you don't have to start stealing from some other worthy part of the budget in order to keep the roof from falling in on you.
All right. Mr. Atten.
A couple of things. First of all, the infrastructure that people are talking about are buildings. And I think all the village buildings, village-owned buildings, are in the center of the village. There are none outside. So the choices are all about those few buildings. Now, also in the village, we have large property owners and large operators who have the option to do whatever they choose. And we can't tell them what to do. But we have to plan in the event they do different things. For example, let's imagine the post office doesn't want a lease beyond the end of next year. What do we do with that building? What if the school decided, the school district decided that they didn't want to have such a small school in their system? Very costly. We don't know. We have no idea. There's a big nursery, as you know, coming into the village. What would happen if that suddenly was no longer a nursery? We don't know. We haven't even talked about it. So there are the big issues in the village over which we have no control, but to which we'll have to react if things change. So that's all about what planning is about, is a forecast and then saying what could possibly go wrong with it. And David's point, we have $11 million in the bank. We have $6 million a year of operating expense, 6 or 7. That's more money than we need to take care of perturbances in our cash flows. So there is some slack there, and we've got to decide very carefully what we do with that slack. At the moment, it's earning treasury yields, which are fine, but that money may not be the case forever. So we've got a lot of tight financial planning and strategic planning to do in the middle of the village, and I'm delighted that John Anisco has taken on the job of putting together a committee to look at the downtown, because there are lots of options, lots of choices, and some risks that we have to consider.
Let me ask you this question, since you brought that up. You have more than you need right now. You have a surplus. And a question from the audience is, should we not cut taxes if possible before expanding village services? So quick answer to this, I don't need a long treatise on it, but are you in favor of cutting taxes for people that live in the community, in the village? Or is this money needed for these other concerns? As you mentioned, something could come up at any time. We can just run down the line, not make it a long thing. David, you can go first.
My answer to that is no, because since 2005, our village has not raised taxes to get increased village revenue, since 2005. And that's extraordinary, 20 years without a tax increase for the village. Remember, your tax bill goes to the village in part, 15%, to the schools, 60%, and to various county entities, 25%. So we've been collecting 15% for all these years. And in the meantime, the school district, for instance, has passed 8 new levies. So we've been squeezed out of giving taxes for our village by having to pay taxes to the school. And we have to pay taxes to the school. I'm just saying we've been squeezed out. So I think we've missed opportunities to raise taxes when it would have made sense. But it's a hard sell because people say my taxes are so high, but they forget or don't know that 60% of their tax, with their real estate tax bill, goes to the schools. And we pick up 15%. It's tiny. Yeah. But that's what we run the village on, plus the income tax and so on. So I don't agree with a tax reduction.
Okay.
And if people want a tax reduction, don't vote for the levy renewal.
Okay. And if you would like to renew the levy, vote for it, right? Grace Ann?
I'll be very quick. I would not vote to increase taxes. I would not, I don't know enough yet on the other,
Okay.
to be honest.
And Karen? She said she would not vote to increase taxes, and she'd need to learn a little bit more to decide whether or not taxes should be cut. Karen?
I like the idea of cutting taxes. I think sounds good, but I also don't want to, be penny wise and pound foolish. I just don't think that right at this time we should be, but it would have to be something that I'd need a whole lot more information on before I could make a decision.
All right, Megan?
I also feel like I would want to know a lot more about our historics from our financial perspective before making a decision like that. I think looking across, communities in the nearby area, we're similarly at a similar rate to similar communities to Gates Mills. So I would need more information.
Okay, we're going down the line, David, and I'll come back, but Craig?
Yeah, I agree with what Karen said, and I will say, camera revenue was $750,000 net to the village in 2024. It's running about $450,000 net through the first 8 months of this year. So I think that tends to distort the village's financial situation somewhat. Personally, I think Gates Mills is a great value for what our tax rate is compared to Shaker Heights or Moreland Hills or elsewhere. So I think there's again, I just want to put things into perspective a little bit. But as I said before, the general fund is at all-time highs and record balances. Part of that is revenue has been higher than expected, but that money shouldn't just be sitting there. I mean, council needs to be talking about, and the mayor needs to be talking about improvements to infrastructure and one-off things that need to be done to improve the village that may not impact the long-term financial condition of the village.
I feel like there's a rumble coming up between Gates Mills, Moreland Hills, and Shaker Heights. You think you guys would win that?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. David Young.
Our real estate taxes are a little over 2.5%. Our income tax is 1%. The fee we pay to Rumpke for our trash pickup is essentially another tax. That puts us at the pinnacle of the neighboring communities. If you take out the Heights, we're right there at the top. I think our taxes are high enough. Most communities don't have an income problem. They have a spending problem. And I don't know enough about the finances today to say we should drop a lot of things, but I think it's worth a conversation. When we have a chance to talk about it, we should see if there aren't some trade-offs that would make sense for the village that would allow us to lower our taxes.
David Atten, you wanted back in?
This is a bit technical, but it's important. If you take the very long run, looking forward, real estate taxes don't rise with property prices. There's a law in place that was established in 1997 called House Bill 920 that makes it such that as property prices go up, the levy rate, the millage goes down so that the revenues remain the same. So a large part of our revenue stream, $2.5 million a year, is really constrained by that law. So our revenues don't go up, but our costs all do. If we look at our cost structures over the past 5 years, they've been going up at least at the rate of inflation. So in the end, your flat revenues and your growing costs must intersect and you start generating deficits. The question is when, and are you prepared to deal with it when it arises? It's a reality, and if we do long-range planning, we'll see that that is going to be the case down the road.
Okay, thank you. It was mentioned a couple of times about safety in the village and specifically pedestrian safety. Here's a question from a resident. As residents who live on Gates Mills Boulevard, we take our lives into our own hands every time we leave our house to go for a walk. Walking in the street on Gates Mills Boulevard is extremely dangerous. What would you do to remedy this safety issue, and how long will it take to address this? So we can talk about Gates Mills Boulevard, but in general, the issue of pedestrian safety as well. Karen?
Answer that. Yeah. Road safety is one of the three things that I noticed that people talked about a lot. And, you know, this camera on Mayfield Road was such a success in that it got people to slow down, most importantly, and increased revenue. I believe there's going to be another camera that is installed in front of St. Francis School. And I think that that's also going to be a revenue producer and get people to slow down in front of that school. I can exit my development from Gates Road right onto Mayfield, and I'm amazed at how fast the cars go all the time. So I'm very happy that the camera is going to be in front of St. Francis. I have also thought that Gates Mills Boulevard is used very often as a cut through from people coming, you know, from down the hill up, and then they go into that area, and they do fly down that road. So either there could be another camera there or speed bumps or something like that. I would be very supportive of that because people are going too fast.
Thank you. And I'm writing down St. Francis School camp. Okay. Good to know that.
I'd like,
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
Raise hand. You're
oh, sorry. Can you, let me make sure you can hear me.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
I think another option is the speed bumps, but we could paint on the roadway. If we're not going to add sidewalks on Gates Mills, why don't we have some painted lines? Because even though we have the signage that says it's a 1-lane road, people still treat it sometimes as 2. And people don't always read signs. You need constant reminders. It's the communication issue again. So we could paint the roads. We could set aside bike lanes. We could set aside pedestrian lanes. And then I thought again with we had patrols before the traffic cameras on Mayfield and River. The police officer stationed at the bottom worked wonders. So we could definitely put patrols on Gates Mills Boulevard and just be a visual reminder to people that this is a residential area.
Okay.
I'm also just on that point, like, selfishly, I live on River Road, and I would love what's been talked about in council recently about noise cameras, or I think that's what they're called, noise traffic monitors or whatever they're called. So some of those things that people start to notice, they get a bill in the mail. It's like, okay, no, Gates Mills is not just a speedway. So.
Okay. Anyone else on pedestrian or traffic safety? David?
If I may, I don't know the numbers, but I would imagine that far more than half the people in this village don't have access to sidewalks. And I think it's a wonderful thing to talk about, but the expense would be enormous if we were to decide to put sidewalks all through the village, which is not possible. So if we are going to do some sidewalks, we've got to be very careful about where and why. Is this the best, most effective use of money, cost money, in terms of safety improvement? And remember, paying for safety shouldn't be a moneymaker. Most safety precautions cost money. They don't make money. We've been fortunate that we've had a perfectly legitimate safety effort on Mayfield Road, and it happens to have generated a lot of money. That's because of the volume of traffic and the speed the traffic was going at. But I think road safety, there are lots of little things we could do that we don't get a big capital investment program. Lots of little things we could do, most of which it could be done by better enforcement. And the question is, how would we do that? Because I know on Chagrin River Road where I live, speeding is monstrous, particularly on weekends, and noisy, as people have been saying. On Sherman Road, on Brigham, on County Line Road, there are a whole list of candidates. So we have to be very careful about where we pick and why, and are we making best use of the money we spend?
Has anyone thought about snipers? Would that work? No? Okay. Let's move on to another topic. And this is one that I had a question on, and it's shared by a resident in the audience. Resident says, what ideas do you have to provide services to seniors living in the village? And adding to that, there is an ad hoc committee that the mayor has appointed to talk about senior services. And my question is, and same with our audience member, what services are needed in the village? And my question also is there a role for the village itself to provide those services, such as Meals on Wheels and other things, or should that be left to individuals to arrange and fund? So one of you mentioned seniors in your introduction. Was that you, Grace Ann?
Yep.
Why don't you start with that then, please?
So this is an issue near and dear to me. I professionally work for a nonprofit that engages mostly retired executives in volunteering and helping entrepreneurs with their business development. So I see the purpose that comes in with people after they retire and after they choose different things to spend their new time with. So I'm a big fan of trying to build in council some more programmatic, actual, not just sort of like one-off volunteer opportunities for people, but actually build in a pipeline, somewhat to what Megan was saying, like a pipeline of structured programmatic volunteer programs that the council could structure and then involve some of our young people and involve some of our other people in the village to make sure that, if we need people to have a check-in, how hard is it to establish a round, we used to call it round robin phone calls to people. And then the committee also has been working and brainstorming the idea of working with the Community Partnership on Aging, where they would help us figure out what the appropriate services could be, such as transportation or, and if we fund some of that. And I keep thinking about the numbers in our village. I think it was 31% are over 65, which if my math is right, that's almost 700 people.
Yep.
And it's only getting worse, not worse. It's only getting more.
Yeah. No, it's getting better.
It's all.
What are you calling for here?
I'm out of here.
No, it's only getting to the point where, that number is growing. So we need to make sure that we're thinking about who our population is.
I mean, wait a minute, I'm going to be there in 5 years.
I want to be there, right? So, and I think that, yes, families have a responsibility, individuals have their own responsibility, but there is something to be said for the fact that this community has an aging population, and it's not like other communities in that regard. And so I personally want to think about that more if that were be someone that I'd be elected to think about.
One of the things I've heard people say, though, is there's another number, and that's net worth. And it's like, should the community provide services that members of the community could provide for themselves?
Some members of the community.
So you would have some sort of means testing for that?
I'm not sure. I think that there are vulnerable people in the community, and they may not have the resources. But again, like, it's something to explore. And it's important.
By the way, surprise, David Atten would like to get in on the conversation.
Hey, I'm looking forward to these services, I must say. So, two things. One, that we have 700 people over 65 live in the village, which is a third of the population. And I'm more concerned, less concerned, shall I say, about socialization, going to play cards or do chair yoga, whatever. I'm much more concerned about those who are infirm and vulnerable. And so I think there's socialization, and then there's security in the sense of welfare. And I think the second tranche is what I'm most interested in, because I've seen how awful it can be for old people left to their own devices. They're too proud to ask for help, but they need help. And it's the community's responsibility, in my view, to take a hand in helping them.
Thank you.
There was another point I was going to make, but I'm senior, I forgot.
That's not fair.
Okay.
I'm going to, just in 1 second, David, but Megan first.
Yeah, thanks. I've been a part of the meetings that with Grace Ann and David on senior services and discussing a path forward. And to David's point, you know, yes, the welfare of the senior citizens is definitely important. But I would argue that socialization is a big part of that too. When you have those connections and know the people in the community, you know, then you're able to assess or determine if those vulnerabilities exist, I think, in an even kind of closer way. And that's really, I think, a big part of where we live. And so, you know, I guess my other takeaway from those meetings would just be the breadth of interest areas that there were identified from the survey's preliminary results. And so I do think that there's things that we in the village can help to absorb and take on from our community organizations. And that's definitely been a part of the discussion. And, you know, some that we would be better off, you know, partnering with the Community Partnership on Aging on, just again, giving the range of things that folks identified. And similar to Grace Ann, I believe that our student community and our parents have a role to play in this. You know, several of the survey responses said, we don't want to just be, you know, put in a room with other old people. We want to be able to interact and have that dynamic. So intergenerational aspect of that is really important.
David Young, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, small point. Of the 700 people.
I'm David Young.
Oh, David Young.
Yeah, and then I'll
Not David Old.
Okay.
This guy's on a roll tonight. David Young, and then David, we'll get back to you for the 20th time.
Fair enough.
David Young, go ahead.
I think it's possible we're looking at our aging community incorrectly, and that many of these over 65-year-olds are vibrant, brilliant people that have a lot to offer and would love to have an opportunity to do something meaningful for the village. And if we could find a way to tap into those resources, it would help us and it would help them. And then for those that are infirm and are in need of real help, Gates Mills, more than any community I've ever seen, is founded on volunteerism. And I'd be much more comfortable seeing a volunteer organization put together to take care of those needs than I would paying an outside service to come in and take care of our neighbors.
Thank you. And David Atten?
Oh, I forgot. No, I do. I remember. Of the 700 people who are over 65, 5% are below the poverty line, and they live in Gates Mills. And they're people who almost certainly need help. I don't know who they are, but neighborhoods do. Neighborhoods know who the people are that need help. And that's why a lot of the efforts we need in this village don't stem from council, don't stem from individuals, but would arise out of action from within a neighborhood where people do know each other. They know the people who are suffering, who are in need of help. And it's only 30 people, but that's an important part of our population, particularly if they're suffering.
Thank you. Let's go from old to young, not from David to David, but from old to young. This is a question from the audience. What policies will you propose to keep Gates Mills vital and attractive to young tax-paying families? Okay, I'll take a hand raise for who would like to jump first. Let's go ahead with Karen.
This is a topic that I think is one of the most essential in Gates Mills. You know, the comprehensive plan said that we lost a lot of young families between 2000 and 2020. Now I see an increase in the number of young people coming in now, but they add vibrancy. They also pay taxes. Retirees don't. So it's critical to have more young people coming into our community. The comprehensive plan also said that a more vibrant downtown would be something that would be attractive to young families. And so that goes in with possibly changing a little bit what is going on here. But I think that bringing young people in, possibly adding things to the website. I know that we have outreach for young families when they're here, but making them aware of the Heritage Home Program, which is a low-interest loan that they could get for additions and renovations that they need to make to our aging housing stock. So I think this is a critical issue for Gates Mills.
Okay.
Are you looking at me?
Who's, well,
I think
David Atten, but let me know if you're also wanting to get in. Okay, Craig, you'll be after that. Go ahead.
I think that the thing that's most important for young families is schooling. We have a five-star public school system in Mayfield. We have an elementary school, which is among the very best in this entire state, which is outstanding. And we have a whole series of pre-K through 12th grade private schools with very, very close. And we need to think more carefully about how we describe those schools. We have no relationship that I know of with any of the private schools. We have a liaison committee that works with the Mayfield City Schools, but we don't try to influence their direction, their policy or anything. We just watch them. And so I think we've got a school network here which is priceless. It's almost as priceless as our natural environment. And I think young couples might going to have children, bring them into this area. The choices are magnificent. And that's the most important thing as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Craig?
Oh, David, that I think in 4 years on council, that's the first positive thing you've ever said about the Mayfield School District.
Yeah,
David's got the mic. This David has the mic. I'm sorry, Craig has the microphone
Craig,
now.
yeah.
But
young Craig.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Craig.
And I will say from, younger families, I think the rural lifestyle is back in vogue. And I think we saw for a long time people wanting to live in cities, live in big cities and be in apartments, and you get out to Gates Mills and it's quiet and it's dark and it's peaceful. And so we have seen an influx of newer families moving in, and a few others kind of hit on the big points, and that is housing. I almost think it's a badge of honor in this village to have more into your house than what it's worth. And as younger families come out here and they look at a home and see how much money has to be put in to update the kitchen or to waterproof a basement or to fix the siding, and all of these things, our zoning code, part of the reason the village looks the way it does is because we have a very restrictive zoning code. And so we have tried hard in planning and zoning, and the individuals that we have on there, as I said at the outset, to really have to respect and understand what the zoning code is and what it's for, but also try to be as flexible as we can when a homeowner comes in and tries to update their home. But there's a specific section in the zoning code that says, because of the way the lot was configured, you can't put an addition onto your home, or you can't put a balcony off of the back or put a deck on. So I think that's, and by and large, I think the last 7 or 8 years, we've kind of come a long way to helping those things. But the Mayfield School District, Both my boys went to Gates Mills Elementary. It's a fantastic school. People have a choice. If you want to send your kids to a public school, Gates Mills Elementary, one of the top 4 in the state. And I think that's a great option. If people want to send their kids elsewhere, they have that option too.
Okay. Really?
Well, of course, he made an accusation that's.
Oh, right. Okay. Go
Correct.
ahead.
Okay.
Your response.
Can I correct it just for the moment? 5 years ago, when I first started paying attention, are you listening, Mike?
I am, yes.
Yeah. 5 years ago, when
I can listen and look that
when
way
I
at the same
started
time.
paying attention to the schools, their performance was not good. In fact, it had declined both in absolute and relative terms over a long period of time. I remember a council meeting we had in 2022 on October. Dr. Barnes and Scott Snyder, the treasurer of Mayfield, came to council, and I was very critical of the school's performance. Now, they got rid of the previous superintendent and brought in Dr. Barnes in 2021. And since then, we gave them a pretty hard time on performance. And since then, their performance has improved dramatically under a new leadership and a little bit of a kick in the butt. And I don't take credit for any of that, maybe just a little bit. And so, Craig, you missed the point. I was not being critical of the school district. I was trying to say that they needed to improve their performance. And I think that's the fair thing to do and that all children should be exposed to all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, but I think the first hand I saw go up was Megan's, and then you can jump in right after that, and then Karen. We're all in. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. You're pointing to someone else. Okay. Megan.
Great, thanks. I was also going to say that I love to hear the positive feedback about the Mayfield City Schools, because that has not been necessarily the communication that has always consistently come out of council. The district is committed to educating every child every day, and has been through this administration, and I'm sure the prior one. But I agree with what Craig said, which is that we need to celebrate the access and the choice that our community has to not only quality public schools, but quality private and parochial schools. We have choice and access to a wide range of educational opportunities, and that's going to draw families in. And when we celebrate that as a community, especially our public school system, which again is at 5 stars, the highest distinction they could have. The elementary school is fantastic. Both of my kids go there. My son is in the middle school now, and we've been very happy there. So when we as residents celebrate that, that is going to bring families here. I think there's also, the kind of communication that young families want to see. So where we have the opportunity to expand upon communications, whether that's over social media, over email, or even in-person opportunities, that's going to draw families in. And then opportunities to bring families together. I've worked really hard as part of our PTC at the school and as part of the Mayfield School Liaison Committee to get out the word about the quality educational options within the district, and also to start family-friendly activities. We have movie nights here in the community house over the winter. We just held our first 5K. These are opportunities to bring people together, intergenerational opportunities. And the more things like that we can have, the more families are going to see Gates Mills as a place that they want to live.
Thank you. Grace Ann.
Yeah, I just was going to go back to the point about renovating houses and the programs that are available. It might be, and I'm not sure, but it might be that we need to do more historic designations so that some of these houses are more qualified to get the funding to do the rehab. So if you buy the house, but you have to spend in the almost equal amount to make it septic, roof, plumbing, electrical code, that dissuades people, and that came out in the plan. So I'm wondering if there are some creative ways that we can look at how houses are historic designated and be eligible for those tax programs, because that is what's going to bring families in before they even look at schools, if they can even live in the house. And if our housing stock is aging and you can't afford it, they're not going to live here.
Thank you. Speaking of young families and young people, I just want to call out the 2 incredibly well-behaved young people who I think have to be here based on the tags you're wearing. But you're doing a great job, and thank you guys for being here and being so.
They are doing a great job.
I figured there was some connection there. let's move into a question that Councilman Michael Press, who is not up for reelection, he has contended that there should be changes to the zoning practices here, and in fact suggested this question. It arises from that. Should the Gates Mills charter be amended such that significant zoning changes passed by council are put to the voters for ratification? So if you make any zoning changes, and I know council has said they're not interested in major zoning changes, but if you make zoning changes, should the public then have a ratification vote on them? I'll start actually with you, Craig, if you'll give us a thought on that.
Listen, this has been a point of discussion for the last 3 years in council. In 2022, we had a charter review commission that Michael was a member of, along with Sean Riley and Lori Deacon and a few others. And they came back with some changes to the charter. And one of the suggestions that they had was that voters have an opportunity to weigh in after something was passed on major zoning changes. And the question is, what's a major zoning change? And we have talked about this in council. If you want to change zoning to something less than 5 acres, that's a major zoning change. I think you'd probably have pretty unanimous support up here. That's an easy box to check. When you start to get into some of the other items on here, I think council has more work to do to flush out some of these issues. Wade Hill doesn't have this. Hunting Valley doesn't have this. Moreland Hills doesn't have this. So what do they know that we don't, or what do we know that they don't? And so I would look around the room here, and by show of hands, does anyone even know that this has been discussed at council? And I'd be shocked if more than half the hands in the room went up. And that's the problem. Everybody in the village should know what council's talking about, why we're talking about it. And when it comes to voters, they understand what's being done, not the rumor mill of, why is this being done? Is there a developer coming into the village? What's going on? What don't we know about? So I'm all for transparency. I'm all for having this conversation. I just think council as a whole needs to have the conversation, and we need to get input from everybody on council, not just one member of council.
Okay. David Atten, should there be a ratification vote on major zoning changes?
Hell yes.
Okay. There you go. Quickest answer we've ever.
I'll tell you why. Zoning is a fundamental part of the way of life in this village. The reason we are the way we are is that there have been zoning structure in place that makes it stay that way. And I think that I would define significant in terms of a change as anything that today council approves. I've been on council for 4 years. I think we've only reviewed and approved probably a couple of zoning changes in that time. So I'm not talking so much about the council as it is today or as it will be in January, but the council that might be here 10 years from now, because the charter is a pretty permanent thing. It's tough to change because you have to go to the voters for that. But I believe it's so fundamental to our way of life that all the people in the village have subscribed to. They ought to have a say in any changes that the council endorse in order to ratify it, as you put the question.
Okay.
So I think it's so fundamental, and that it would make sure that villagers did pay attention to what was going on with zoning. At the moment, they tend not to even think about it because it has been safe for a long time, but it could be unsafe in the future. So I think it's a way of telling the villagers that we trust them to make the most important decisions that council have to make.
Okay.
And I think that's all part of the democratic model you were talking about earlier.
David Young.
I think there's 2 issues here. One is zoning. There's nothing that impacts us more here in the village than our zoning laws and our 5-acre minimum and 1 household per lot. And any significant change, and I agree that defining what is a significant change is hard, but just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I think that's something that should rise to the level of a village vote. The other issue is after the zoning law was passed by a vote in the village to have a 5-acre minimum, council passed an ordinance, 1160, that didn't go to a vote to the people, but the purpose of the ordinance was to allow people that owned 25 acres or more to develop the land a little differently. If they gave half of their acreage to a land conservancy, they could then put lots of 2.5 acres on their property. And some of those lots could include houses that had adjoining walls. That per se is not a bad thing. It's still in total 5 acres per household, but the language at 1160 is a little vague. And it's possible that a developer could buy some land with his interpretation, take his plans to the village council and get denied because it was inconsistent with their thought behind the original ordinance, and then have the developer go to a judge and have some outside legal entity make a decision on what they think is proper for this particular instance. And that's a risk we don't need to have. We can change the language to make it clear in 1160 so that that doesn't ever come up. And I think we should do that too.
Okay, so yes for ratification?
Yes.
Okay. Other thoughts on that, or can we move on? Okay, we'll move on. Craig had mentioned that everyone should know what council is talking about. And ever since I've been coming here, the complaint has been that the public feels there's not enough transparency. They don't know enough about what their government is doing despite efforts. I know that Councilman Inesco has started an independent website that opens lines of communications and people can respond in that way. Is there a communication problem in Gates Mills? And is it the messenger or the receiver who's to blame? And how would you improve communication? Grace Ann.
So I don't know if we want to talk about blame. I think the council, the information's here. Villagers can come to every meeting. Villagers can come and volunteer on committees. The information's there. There's two things that I would like to see improved. One is I think the website's slightly antiquated and it could just be a little bit easier to find some things. That's an undertaking I haven't looked into. It's there, thank goodness it's there, but there's some things that could make it a little bit more user-friendly. That's just, website maintenance. Secondly, I would like to see the signage, like I mentioned in my opening statement, on, we use the signage in the village for social events, but we don't use it for civic engagement. That's an easy low-hanging fruit solution. So if there's something that, come to the council meeting this month, if we don't have to advertise for the social event and we could fill in the blank with different things. I'm not saying plaster the village with signage. I don't want that either. But, the very strategic places where we've had signage, that's easy. We've talked about in some of the committees doing some flyers, possibly just, maybe, encouraging more people to sign up for the pink sheet, to sign up for the emails. And I also just think talking to our neighbors. So there was a little bit of conversation earlier about, or even in the plan, the people who were designated as like block captains. Why can't we have block captains now for neighborhoods now to get more engagement? So it could just be more of a concerted effort for engaging people in real time, not necessarily always over technology, but like in real time. So that's a priority.
David Young put up his hand.
We ask too much of our customers. We all agree the information is there. The minutes from the last council meeting were 18 pages. The agenda was 64 pages. I've gone to the village council meetings for a little over a year now, and I get it. It's a lot of work that goes into this, and trying to get the council members to come to some consensus is hard enough. If they open that forum up to everybody, it's going to make it harder to make any kind of decision. But again, just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And we need to make the information that's going on in council much more accessible proactively to our customers, either in a monthly email or a dedicated website where you summarize things. No one's going to go through the entire agenda and read what the individual ordinances that they're looking at are involving. But if we don't have a way of synthesizing that information and giving it out to people in a society where we aren't you know, it's a TikTok world. We need to be able to give this to our customers in a 3 or 5 minute kind of thing in order for them to decide what is worth their time to investigate and then provide some feedback and help us make the right decision.
Okay, thank you. Megan?
Yeah, I
And then
mean,
Craig.
I run into this at the school. We run into this at the agency I work with, and obviously it's a concern in the village. People are busy, and so you have to hit them with multiple forms of communication. There needs to be, the written word. There needs to be emails, potentially social media, and I think where we can provide people with those opportunities, then hopefully they'll be able to have the resources or know where the resources are to stay informed. You're probably still going to have somebody who ends up upset that they didn't know about something. But if you at least try to put out all those forms, that helps. And I think, council meetings, attend them, watch them on YouTube. If there's opportunities for more informal interaction with our village staff and village officials, not in that official format, that might also lend itself to people being able to ask questions, not in that kind of more tense or formal environment. So I think there's many ways that we can be thinking about communication and the ways that we can better connect with our citizenry. And I'd be open to really looking into that.
Okay, several of you have given me the high sign. I've got an order here in my head. I'm going to start with you, Craig.
Okay, a few thoughts. I think in council's efforts to be more transparent, the minutes and all of the materials tend to be significantly lengthier than what they were previously. If you were to go to the minutes prior to 2020 or 2018 or 2019, it's probably 2 or 3 pages, and that would be the extent of it. We've tried to annotate on the minutes exactly what time on the YouTube point, so you can go in there. And if I'm looking for a specific question on zoning or trash pickup, I can look in there and go to a specific minute mark and go and look at that. I think that's we tried our best to be more transparent. The other thing I would say would be nice to have some sort of an email system at the village that residents could opt in or out by category. I'm interested in zoning, check a box. Here's a quick update from the council meeting on zoning. If you don't see anything, there wasn't. I'm interested in infrastructure. I'm interested in anything else that goes on in the village as it relates to any types of changes. That there could be 4 or 5 broad categories to be able to select. And at least that way, the information gets filtered down a little bit more where, to your point, you don't have to read through 64 pages. You can only pick the paragraph or hopefully the sentence or two that you might be interested in.
Okay, Karen?
I think it is asking a lot for our residents to come to a council meeting that lasts 3 hours. I don't understand why that has to be. And I would really seek to respect everybody's time, including the council people, more by having shorter meetings, by not allowing certain members of council to go on. I don't think that adds anything. So I just would like to see less than 3-hour meetings. I don't know if anybody who's on council can explain why that is.
Well,
All right, I'll let you explain that, David, and then we'll go to you, David Young.
I have my view on that, but I'd rather talk about some other things.
Okay, all right. Well, let me go to David Young then, because we had an order. I thought you were exactly responding to.
I will respond to that and other things.
Mr. Young?
90% of what the council does is the boring stuff that has to be done for the day-to-day operation of the village. And frankly, it's a snooze to read through the minutes, the agendas, or sit through the meetings. It's that 5 or 10% that gets really juicy that we need a way of getting out to the people so that they can have an opportunity to interact with just those items. I think your suggestion of having a way of opting in and out of certain topics is a great idea to not bore everyone with the day-to-day stuff, but make them aware of the things that are happening that might be a visible change and give them an opportunity to voice their opinion.
All right, David Atten.
The information that flows from council to the villagers is not user-friendly and it is not timely. If, for example, if you want to find out what happened in the council meeting a month ago, you have to wait till now to see the papers. And then when you get the papers, they are 25 pages long. and you have to go to the YouTube and find the minute and see what was said. There was a great councilman in this village. He died recently, Ed Welsh, and he tried very, very hard for a very long time to send out a little summary of what he thought was happening at council. It wasn't always accurate, but it was always on time, and people were very grateful to receive it because it was a way to look into what was going on. So the information is, I always say it's written by lawyers for lawyers. It's not helpful for the average guy who's trying to understand what's going on. And it's not timely. For instance, the agenda isn't posted until Friday evening of the night before the Tuesday council meeting with 25 pages of attachments. No villager is going to spend his weekend looking at that paper unless doesn't have a life. So I think we could make it much speedier and we could make it much more user-friendly. But behind this, there's another problem. And that is that all councils in their bodily juices want these meetings to be secret because we get business done in secret much better than when they're in public. And all our meetings, including council, and the government here isn't just council, it's 30 committees that also meet in public session where people can go. The biggest audience I've seen at council has been probably 50. Typically it's 6 or 7, and they're often the same people. So going to a council meeting is not a great night out, that's for sure.
All right.
So there needs to be a way of making this user-friendly and timely. But behind all this, there's another problem. That
Quickly, please, because we've got a couple
we
of...
err on the side of being secretive. We don't err on the side of making it public. So we have executive sessions, and I'm very concerned that from my own personal point of view, that we go into those sessions unnecessarily in order that we can talk secretly about things. And I don't always agree that that's the right way to deal with that topic in that fashion. So there are a lot of issues here, and we all can see lots of room for improvement.
Okay, thank you. We're going to do about another 20 minutes. Actually, no, this is a 4-hour. You said 3-hour council meetings. We'll do a 4-hour session. Now, we're going to go to 9 o'clock, and I'm going to leave the last 10 minutes for those final statements. But to my point, we've got 20 minutes and a lot of topics, so let's condense and get your point across. The next topic is something, David Atten, you brought up earlier, and I've heard from others, I heard from you, David Young, as well. First was about the tree canopy, and we've got a question from the audience about the tree canopy declining significantly in recent years. To date, we have no tree inventory or management plan in place, says this audience member, for replanting to offset the tree losses. Talks about the committee that was created as a result of the comprehensive plan, identifying the importance of maintaining the tree canopy. Got off to a good start, but notes that beyond that, there hasn't been much interest in developing plans on several sites for tree planting. That's one part of the question. But further than that is the issue of land conservancy that you brought up, David Young, and that is what role should the Land Conservancy play in this discussion? And the split of money that comes from the tax for the Land Conservancy in the past had been 95% to 5% to the Land Conservancy. Now it's a 50-50 split for the last 4 years. Is that appropriate? Is that the best way to deal with that issue? There's another question here about what you would do for the environment beyond the tree canopy. So putting all that together in a question about essentially the environment, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Who would like to be first? Karen.
I understand that the 50-50 split between the village and the Land Conservancy is soon to be up for discussion again, beginning of 2026. So I think there will be a good opportunity to examine that and determine whether that's sufficient or it should be lowered for the Land Conservancy, simply because the Land Conservancy has acquired 700 acres. They've done a fabulous job at that. I don't know how many more acres they're considering acquiring, but now they're probably into a more maintenance role. And perhaps the maintenance role that they will now undertake doesn't need that kind of funding from the village, and maybe it could be less. So that would be something that I would want to look into.
Okay. Megan?
Yeah. A big part of the reason that our community looks the way it does is our village's commitment to preserving our land. And that's largely happened, in coordination with the village, but also with the Land Conservancy. And the levy, in my perspective, is key to that mission, not only from an acquisition standpoint, but also from a stewardship and maintenance standpoint of those 700 acres. the levy's had great support from the residents, myself included. And if elected, I would want to continue that discussion about the split, but just getting a sense too of like the resources and financial needs, ensuring that we're appropriately resourcing that mission, I think is hugely important to maintaining and conserving what we have. I would also add there's been, really positive traction on the tree canopy with the committee and the focus on invasives. I think, coordinating between the tree canopy committee and the land conservancy on those efforts is really important, and resourcing it is really important. It was obviously a very high priority in the comprehensive plan. And so, and that extends to the other areas, our Chagrin River watershed and green space in general.
Does anybody have any thoughts about whether the money that comes from that levy should be used specifically for tree canopy or what invasive species and the things that you're talking about? Or can it be more broadly used like for stormwater management that also involves the Chagrin River? Some people are against that and say this money should be used basically for trees. And I wonder if there are broader thoughts about the use of the levy money. Craig can go first.
Yeah, listen, if you're asking if we're going to, or if I'm in favor of using land conservancy funds to replace a culvert, no. Stream bank erosion. We have a lot of hillsides and ravines in this village, some owned by the village, some owned by the land conservancy. We have an erosion problem in this village. And so could some of those funds be used for riparian issues? Depending on what that is and what it looks like, I would likely be in favor of that. 80% of the parcels in the village are less than 5 acres. We have about 15 acres or 15 parcels in this village that are larger than 20 acres. And those are significantly sized parcels that have a possibility to significantly alter the look and feel and the ambiance of this village if something were to be developed. So I would like to see more partnership with the Land Conservancy and with the village on stewardship. We've got great resources in the village that can be leveraged from the Land Conservancy, but there are also a lot of large parcels in the village that a war chest needs to be built for to be able to preserve those properties in the state that they're in now.
Okay. Further thoughts on this? Grace Ann, David, and again,
Grace,
I'll be brief. I think a lot of it also comes back to communication. We need to make sure that the villagers have buy-in in our community. Like they understand the tree canopy. We like the greenery. We're all here for that reason. We love it. But just that there are some simple steps we could do individually on our own properties in small campaigns, small communication campaigns, just to get people to buy in to taking care of their property, to investing in a tree, to cutting vines, just little things. I just feel like there's some communication, some fundamental communication, and just some things we could do creatively to keep that pie in. So people, yeah, they want to look at the trees, but here's what it takes to get there. And we can all have a piece. We can all have a part of that.
okay. David?
I think I'll take the bull by the horns. The splitting of the money that comes from the levy that flows to the village, and then the village has the discretion, and we choose to sign an agreement, or we have in the past, where we share it with the Land Conservancy, and they've gone out and bought land or bought easements or whatever. I think the question really is adding to our responsibility as a government, plus the Land Conservancy, is adding to our responsibility to remediate these sites and make them, reforest them, make them healthy again. Or is it the right way to spend the money to expand the job or to get the job done? And I think that's a debate we have to have. The main reason I want to stay on council for another 4 years is to see this through. We have to get this plan developed into a proper roadmap, but as I mentioned in my opening remarks, a real wide environmental preservation development scheme that affects all the village. Now, the Land Conservancy and the village own only like 15% of the property in the village. So if this effort is ever going to be successful, we have to persuade the owners of the other 85%, which is all private owners. And the only way you can persuade people to do things is if you educate them as to why they should do it, or why they might even think about it. So I think talking about splitting the money up is absurd before we've decided what we want to do overall as a plan. So I think it's one of the reasons I'm staying, as I said, is not just the land conservancy relationship, but the whole tree canopy thing. I want to see it started, and in the next 4 years, it might well do that. It hasn't really done so yet.
Okay. And David Young, you spoke earlier about being fully in support of the land conservancy.
Between the Land Conservancy, the village, and the metro parks, 24% of the acreage in Gates Mills is under protection. 13% of that is under the control or because of the Land Conservancy. Some people might say 24% is too much or enough. I'm not sure there is any number that is enough. There's two issues. One is protecting as much land as we can, and the other is being good stewards of the land that we own. The Invasive Species Project, the Tree Canopy Project are all a good first step in that direction. And I agree with David Atten that a long-term plan makes a great deal of sense. In my mind, the real question is, who do you want driving that plan? People on council or the Land Conservancy? And I think the experience and expertise and contacts in the Land Conservancy are going to serve the village much, much better.
Let me ask this, it's related because it's environmental as well. There's a discussion with the village and the Chagrin Valley Hunt Club to have the Hunt Club tie into the village's sewage system with their private sewage system. Some say the public system should not tie into a private enterprise such as this. They have a complaint about that. Others say the capacity in the village is 25% is being used. You'd go up to 50%, have plenty of capacity, and make some money from the Hunt Club. Real quickly, does anyone have a sort of a yes or no about whether that particular one and maybe others should tie into the public sewer system? David Young?
I think it's a win-win for the village.
Okay.
They loan the Hunt Club money, they get interest on that. Then the Hunt Club pays them a fee to handle their sewage. It helps the Chagrin River to keep that cleaner. It's been mentioned that it's a different system than we all have at our homes. It's a pressurized system because they have to pump the sewage from the village center out to the sewage treatment plant, which is on the corner of River and Mayfield Road. The Hunt Club would have to do the same. The houses along that corridor wouldn't be able to tie in because they'd have to have some high pressure pumping system to get into that system. And that just isn't consistent with a home septic system.
So yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Craig?
Yeah, I would say depending on what the final deal looks like, yes.
Okay. Megan?
Yes, also the same. I think, it's in line with state guidance that private entities, tie in where it makes sense. It's a win-win for the village, as David and Craig just said, in terms of helping to protect the Chagrin River watershed. If there were to be any issues with the Hunt Club's current system, we're getting interest on the loan and also the sewer wastewater rate. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Karen?
Yes.
Okay. And Grace Ann?
Yes.
Okay. Those are great answers. Those are the best kind of answers.
Short.
David?
I spent a lot of my business career negotiating transactions, and you only ever think about a transaction if it makes conceptual sense, and this makes perfect conceptual sense to me. I'm very concerned about whether we're getting the right price for the transaction. The Hunt Club has a big problem. They've got a sewage problem, and if they don't fix it, they'll pollute the Chagrin River. It's their responsibility to fix it. We can help them, but and I think conceptually we should. I want to see, like Craig just mentioned, I want to see the final terms. It's a long-term deal with risks, and I need to understand the economics of that transaction.
Do you need to call Tim Misney to make them pay? Is that what you're going to do?
Maybe.
Okay.
He's
Fair enough.
We wouldn't do that in Gates Mills.
No.
No.
David Young, you wanted to jump back in on that real briefly or no?
Dave said what I was going to say.
Okay.
Makes sense, but we shouldn't give it away. The Hunt Club has a cost to do it on their own, and we shouldn't make it super easy for them to make that problem go away.
Okay. Probably maybe be our final question before we get to a question that leads into our final statements. There's a movement in Ohio to eliminate real estate taxes, and it's starting to gain some steam. It won't be on the ballot in November, but some polls have shown that if and when it gets on the ballot, it's likely to pass. That's debatable, but there are certainly a lot of people that are behind that. Also, the legislature is making a number of smaller moves to try to head off this citizen petition initiative. So the question is, what would you do in this community? How would you respond to an effort to eliminate real estate taxes? How would that affect Gates Mills, and what would be your response to that? Silence is a perfect answer. That's a good one. That's the shortest answer I've ever heard.
Listen,
Craig?
you can, as another council person used to say all the time, you can set your ruler along the property tax line year by year by year by year, and it's very consistent. It's about $2.5 million. Village runs about a $6.5 or $7 million a year budget. That's going to be a problem. And so I don't have any concrete answers for that, but one of two things would have to happen. It's either something on the expense side or some other revenue generating something put together to offset that.
Okay. David Atten.
I was raised in the UK, and 20 years ago, there was a vote in the UK as to whether they should leave the European Union. And the debate was yes or no. And the people who said yes didn't have a clue what it meant. They didn't understand the implications, either short or longer term, strategic, and so on. So asking people if what happens if real estate tax goes away, what happens, how's the system going to work? Schools are going to be devastated.
Local governments,
Local
fire
government.
stations.
But
police
as we said earlier, we have a little bit of a cushion. We're fortunate in that respect. So David was talking about having a cushion for eventualities. That we would have more than most, but it wouldn't be enough. So it's basically a silly question.
Well, I guess the question then would be, if that move was afoot, what would you do then? In your view, it sounds like to combat it, to say don't vote for that.
You'd say what's going to fill the gap? The gap is enormous and affects every single municipality, school system, whatever in the state. How's it going to be replaced?
Other thoughts?
Let's cancel income tax. What are you going to do to replace it?
I would just like to add, I think it just goes again to the long-term planning. It's looking at the fact that we're in a good position now, and if we can't control things we can't control. So if you don't plan for those contingencies, you'd be in trouble. That's a giant contingency, granted, but there is something to be said for focusing on what we can control, but then thinking conservatively about how we're spending money. And so I think it just goes towards that planning for, we feel like we have a cushion now, but it might not stay. So that makes me nervous. I wouldn't want to blow that too quickly.
Okay. Okay, we're going to have this question that's going to kind of lead me into our way to set up our kind of closing statements. The question or the statement is, two of you are incumbents, and at some point, you'll undoubtedly be asked about your achievements in office. Four of you are quite new to Gates Mills politics. So we'd like to know about how you've gone about familiarizing yourselves with the issues that the village faces. And essentially the last line is how I want to set this up for the incumbents as well as for the folks that have not yet held office. Are you ready? Is the question. Are you ready for this? So we'll leave that as the jumping off point for about a minute or so. I left a little extra time because based on what's gone on tonight, none of you respects my clock. But we have a minute or so, and we'll close with that. We went this way last time. Now we're going to go the other way. And David, you can start. Are you ready? And what is the message that you want the citizens of Gates Mills to leave with tonight from your candidacy?
I was encouraged to run by 3 current council members a year and a half ago. Since then, I've been going to most of the council meetings to see what goes on and whether or not I'd be able to be of any help to the council in the village. I think I can be by redirecting the focus on communications and the council serving our customers better.
Are you ready?
Absolutely.
And how so?
I've seen the issues that are going on. I've seen the dynamics of the people that are involved on each side of the issues. And I've talked with many of us in the village about those issues and have a consensus of what I've heard and can bring that to council.
Okay. What are you going to do with all the money they pay you for the job? Nothing. Okay. It's unpaid.
All
right.
I heard we're getting a 10% raise.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. 10% of zero, even I know, is still zero. All right, Craig, you have about a minute or so.
Yes, some of you may know, some of you may not. I was actually appointed to council in 2021 when Mary Reynolds resigned and moved out of town. I ran for what was effectively re-election 4 months later, and I'm happy that residents and voters, gave me a chance to continue the good work on behalf of residents. Am I ready for this? Yes, I think this is a lot to take in. I think we're a very unique community. We're all volunteers. We're not getting paid for this up here. We all care deeply about this village and the way it looks, and we all want it to essentially stay the same, and I think that's important. But along those lines, I would just have 2 asks. If you see a staff member of the village, thank them. Thank them for all the hard work that they do. If you ever drive around in Shaker and elsewhere during the winter, our roads are always dry pavement before everyone else's, all the storm cleanup, all the work that gets done. So if you see a staff member of the village, thank them for their effort and keeping this village the way it looks. And number 2 is, if you're interested, get involved. You can devote as much time or as little time as you want. There are committees for every interest. And I just would say we are Gates Mills because we're a unique culture of volunteerism, and everybody's got to start somewhere. So even if it's only an hour or 2 here and there, it's greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. Megan, your time is now.
Yeah. I was encouraged to run for this position by several current and former village leaders, which was an honor to be asked and to be thought of. And when I think about why that is, I think it's because of how involved I am in both our school and in our village community. Taking those opportunities to get to know our village organizations, our village staff, and all that they do for making this the place that we all love to live. And so to the question of if am I ready? 4 years ago is when I really started paying a lot of attention to what was going on in this village. And so I think, yes, I am. I care a lot, and I've learned so much about village operations and how things work around here. So I feel that I am ready to step into this position.
It's almost 9 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? Because I don't. They were there a minute ago. You got a handle on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Susan's got it.
Long as somebody does. All right. Very good. And Karen, your time is now.
Yes, I'm ready and I'm excited for the opportunity. I've done my homework. I have talked with former mayors, the current mayor, many of the current council people, past council people, and you. And I feel like I have a sense for what it is that you're concerned about, what you worry about, and what you would like to see change. So yes, I am ready and can't wait to get started.
Very good. And we've saved about 15 minutes for David Atten. I'm just kidding. No, it's not your turn yet. Grace Ann.
Don't tease.
Grace Ann.
I would be remiss to say that I was encouraged to run after meeting different people. I am probably the newest candidate to come into the village. I recognize that, but I'm also, as you hopefully have learned tonight, I'm a very big believer in civic engagement. And I'm like, well, of course if you ask me to do something, I'll check it out. I'll try it. So I'd like to think that my new voice would add a nice perspective to the council. And I'm also, I hope, savvy enough to know that I need to learn from the incumbents. And I was talking to Craig earlier, there is a learning curve. It's a lot. So I acknowledge that. But I am ready. If you asked me 10 years ago, I would have said no. I had young kids. But now there's more time for me and there's more time to invest. And so I'm happy to serve. If elected, I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you. And David Atten.
The way I look at things is that the last 4 years on council, I've learned an awful lot. I made these points in my opening remarks. And there's a good deal of unfinished business, both in terms of process, like communication, decision-making, and so on. But most important to me is the tree canopy. And I'm on that committee, and we've got a lot of work to do. We're going very slowly, and it's not moving as quickly as I would like. We need more help, and but I want to stay around to see that dealt with. And I also want to be part of this discussion about how we distribute the Land Conservancy revenues from the tax going forward. So I'm qualified. I've got a lot of energy, and I want to do it again. And I hope you understand the reasons why. And I hope that you will vote for me in the November 4th election.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to you, David Atten, to Grace Ann Bourne, to Karen Greco, to Megan Perez, to Greg Steinbrink, and to David Young, all of you for being here and sharing your thoughts with the audience. Let's hear it for your candidates. And as for me, as I said at the beginning, it's always a real affirmation for me to be here and to have all of you engage. I'm the executive editor of IdeaStream Public Media. That's the NPR and PBS concerns in town. We also have a website. You've heard about all of the rescissions and the defunding and all of that stuff. We're going to be fine. The public has stepped up in support of IdeaStream Public Media. We're going to continue to go forward. I encourage you to listen. And if you like it, maybe support it too. I will be on tomorrow morning at 9 and tomorrow evening on television at 7:30. Love to have you guys be a part of it, to listen. We take emails during the show. We do all kinds of topics throughout the day. Sometimes it's very much like the topics here, but on a slightly broader scale. So I invite you to listen to that. And thank you very much for allowing me to be here with you. And the mayor is waving at me. What would you like me to say, sir?
There's some treats and cookies and water and so on.
All right, cookies and treats to end the night. What a great way to finish. And thank you, everybody, for your hospitality. Bye-bye.
Nice job.
Oh, thank you, sir.
The answer to the question is